Manuel Lolarga is a professional engineer and principal at Tandem Engineering Group, where he leads multidisciplinary teams and drives large scale engineering projects across multiple industries. With over 20 years of experience, Manuel has built a reputation for combining technical expertise with strong leadership, mentorship, and business development. Based in Windsor, he is also an entrepreneur and consultant through the Extraordinary Group, where he focuses on helping individuals and teams reach their full potential, both personally and professionally. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cracking the Success Vault here with Spectre Group. Today, I'm joined by my great friend, Manuel Lolarga. You're a principal at Tandem Engineering. I know that you also do some real estate stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit about leadership development and everything today because you and I have had some great conversations. But for those of you, the people that are listening that don't know who you are or where you came from, let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? And, how'd you get to Windsor?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me here, Sean. Really appreciate the time to be able to share. I think it's all about adding value. So, yeah, again, my name is Manuel Lolarga. I was born and raised here in Windsor, so homegrown. I went to school at University of Windsor, and struggled a little bit out of the gate, but I got a chance to get in the workforce, and then I lived in Kitchener-Waterloo for about 10 years. And then about 6 years ago, I moved back here to Windsor. The opportunity was right, was able to connect with some people that I used to work with in the past. And then now I'm a principal engineer for a company called Tandem Engineering. So, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. And so what took you away from Windsor? What took you to Kitchener?
Yeah. So back in 2008 or 9, I'm sure a lot of people kind of remember those days. I was working about 80 or 90 hours a week, traveling a lot. Right. And then right around 2008, so my biggest client was Daimler Chrysler. And what ended up happening was they went bankrupt along with another, big company there. And because of that, they downsized from about maybe 72 people down to 12. Right. And I was like lucky number 13. So I got the short end of the stick. But, when one door closes, another one opens. And the person that actually hired me out of school, he moved to Kitchener-Waterloo, and then when I found out that he was there and he knew I was looking, and then that's when I saw an opportunity to reach out to him, and then I lived there from 2010 to about the end of 2019.
Okay. And then moved back here to become a part of Tandem.
Yes.
Got it. And so what made you get into engineering in the first place? Is it the thing you always wanted to do as a kid growing up? Like what made engineering the thing that you went after?
Interesting story. So when I was very, very young, I thought I was going to be maybe a doctor or something along those lines. And then I realized starting to grow up, it's just definitely not my cup of tea. But because I never had anybody in my close family that was actually engineering. So I went to a guidance counselor when I was in maybe grade 11 or 12. They asked me what I wanted to do. I didn't know. So they just looked at my transcript. Looks like you're pretty good in math and science. You should go into engineering. And that's literally how I went to engineering. And I didn't even know anything about what engineering does at the time.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. I have always heard guidance. I've always heard the story of like guidance counselors being like, yeah, no, you're probably never going to succeed at something. I've heard some crazy stories and someone's like, yeah, you know what? Well, I'm going to go succeed. Right. I might have B's or, C's and D's on my transcript, but I'm just going to go make something of myself. Very rarely do you hear of that story of like, they said, go here and I didn't know anything about it, but I did it. And so what were your thoughts when you started going through the process? Was it something you enjoyed? Like, what did you like about it that made you actually stay with it?
So when I was kind of going through the process, one of the things I want to do is to seek advice from people or people that, that went into that industry. And I almost didn't go into engineering at the time because one of my older brother's best friend, we were workout partners in grade 12. And we got a chance to, talk. I said, hey, you know what? I'm planning on going to engineering. What are your thoughts? Right. And he gave me a lot of, let's say, negativity about it because it's not like in high school. Your professors are not like your teachers. You're taking 6 courses and 6 labs, right? You're going to be like living at the campus almost all the time. So I really got discouraged. But then again, I realized that, you know what? Here, I'm getting advice from somebody that actually failed after his first year.
Right.
All right. So I knew I couldn't take advice from somebody from where I want to succeed in.
Right.
Right. So this is when I reached out to a distant a distant uncle in California who actually
Mm.
owned an engineering firm.
Oh, wow.
And that's where he kind of gave me the ins and outs, the good and the bad. And so I seek advice from experts,
Yeah.
especially somebody that owns it.
Yeah.
And once I got a chance to have a really good conversation with him, right, and then that's when I started to pursue engineering
Mm.
at a higher level with a different kind of perspective going in.
Yeah. I mean, perspective is kind of everything for anything. Uh, and you and I have had a lot of these kinds of
Hmm.
conversations about leadership and, trying new things and doing new things and getting advice and mentorship, because that's not something that you would hear that a typical, probably 18, 19-year-old kid
I
would
know.
do. He would take advice from his friend about whatever, his career path, about money, about buying the car or investing money. Like, people just don't take that type of advice and go, you know what, maybe I should think about who I'm getting this advice from.
Yes.
So at that young of an age, what made you go, I should probably get a second opinion? Why I shouldn't take advice from this guy that
Hmm.
failed. I should go get advice from someone who succeeded. I mean, you weren't involved in the leadership development kind of stuff
No.
that you were now.
Hmm.
So what made you like have that sort of epiphany
Yeah.
at that age?
Yeah. Well, when I was kind of right before I went to a university, and I guess my uncle, he actually visited me. He drove to California,
Mm.
from California to Windsor, and he stayed with us. So when we drove back, that's when I really got a chance to hear the ins and out. Kind of gave me a good, uh, you know, good viewpoint of what I can expect, whether it's in school, in the corporate world, and just that's what really kind of got me thinking about I can't really count on people that are, in my sphere of influence, because that's where your biggest breaks in life, or the people where you want to grow is going to come outside of your sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't really get a chance to dive deeper in that into when it came to leadership, maybe further on into my career. But at least in the beginning, right when I was starting school, because I know how difficult it can be, it's just getting advice from the right people, because most people are told what to do. But then it's about, okay, what kind of goal? What are you trying to accomplish
Yeah.
at that time? Right. And I know when you're 18, 19 years old, you're probably not, thinking long term and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I also had to pay my own tuition as well. So that really kind of gave me a little bit more urgency,
Mm.
right, to be able to accomplish something on my own. And I think that's where my maturity and leadership started to begin, because it
Mm.
started with leading yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, leading yourself is kind of, you have to, I mean, I look at my career as a financial advisor. I mean, if I'm constantly broke and constantly living paycheck to paycheck and not saving money and not getting insurance and not doing these things that I tell people to do, um, it's not a very good look. But at the same time, I mean, I've had actually, it's funny we're having this conversation. I probably had 5 or 6 people, honestly, in the last like 2 months
Mhm.
that have been like, this plan is great and this makes sense, but like, show me what you're doing. And I've had to be like, here's exactly what I'm doing. Right. And it's been like, oh, okay. So you're actually, doing what you preach you're doing. Right. Um, so I love the fact, because you are also, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most, right?
100%.
And so when we're going to school and we're young and we have all these, maybe these big dreams and these wild things that other people think that we can't do, or maybe it's going to be really hard to do, getting advice from people that aren't where we want to be is kind of already setting up a success for a failure, right?
Mhm.
You're not setting yourself up for success, right? So that must have been some interesting conversations that you had with him, knowing that he owned this big firm. Um, did he give you any other lessons besides kind of that when you guys were having these conversations about getting into engineering?
I think the biggest thing that he kind of did was he wasn't afraid to tell me the truth. Right.
Mm.
I think a lot of people would kind of hide that, but he was very, bold, somebody that owned his own engineering firm out west. Right. And he's very, stern with a lot of his employees. And so that's one of the things that I learned right away about he wasn't worried about sugarcoating some of those things.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. right? Because I'd rather learn some of those things now versus if when I get into the corporate world, 5, 6 years later, that I know what to expect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Setting up expectations
Yes.
are is a big driving factor, I think, for a lot of people. Um, and we'll get into that a little bit later because I want to hear almost your sort of some of the things that you expect now that you're a principal
Yeah.
at an engineering firm and that kind of stuff. But so, okay, so he gave you advice and you decided, I'm not following this friend that I work out with.
Yep.
I'm going to go do this thing. And what were some of the things? So, like, you move away to Kitchener, now you're getting hired by somebody else. What was the expectation there? Like, how did you decide, well, I'm just going to go leave this thing that I was good at because they're downsizing, and now I'm going to go move to a city where I probably don't know a ton of people and do a different career? What was that like?
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the most challenging parts in my life because that was the first time I was actually living permanently from home. In my first job, I was living in different cities, but it was only 1 or 2 months at a time. But here, being laid off from work, I realized that what I had to be able to take ownership of my own decisions, and being away from home for the first time, Kitchener in a city I didn't know anybody. Right, I think my first week when I started, I was actually living out of a hotel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was living out of a hotel, right? And then at the same time, when I started to work, I also had to look for a place to stay. Right, Kitchener Waterloo is a little bit different now, but back then it was a little bit easier. But just that whole process there, getting a place, you also want to be able to impress because it's a very big firm.
Yeah.
The second company I was with is over 10,000 employees at the time, and
Oh,
I
wow.
started at one that was coming from like 15 or 12 to 15.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a humbling experience to be able to see something that large. But it also, I was like, you know what? I almost felt like I have a chip on my shoulder, right? That I wanted to prove myself, and that's where my sense of urgency really started to kick in, and then another area in my career started to grow.
Yeah, which was what?
That is when learning other expertise. So the other automotive industry, I realized there's a lot of engineers that I can be able to, pick from and choose from and to learn from, experts, right? And really humble myself. Like, cause I think as an engineer, especially when you're young, is that we have a little bit of an entitlement mentality. At least I see that with a little bit, some of my engineers, right? And what I noticed is that when you have an entitlement mentality, right, and then as you go through your career, it starts to turn into egos,
Yeah.
right? And there's a difference between a strong ego and a big ego, right? And then I think that's really what stops people from growing and learning or going to that next level in your career or into your life. Because when you get that ego in place, and then now you feel like that you know everything, right? And I know engineers or people in my industry are very strong personalities like that.
Yes.
One of my goals here is to change that narrative when it comes to engineers, because everywhere I talk to, they're surprised that, wow, you're really an engineer. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I would 100% agree with you because whenever I have to meet in my career in finance, if I have to meet with an engineer or an accountant, I know that you're going to be hyper analytical. You're going to want to pick apart every little detail. And I can't use words like this is just a concept. Like let's get the understanding of the concept before we start doing numbers. They're like, no, just show me the numbers. And I'm like, you're not going to understand the numbers until I show you the concept. So let's like back up a little bit. And you have to like almost massage around the fact that like, listen, I get it. You're smart. You know a lot. You can read numbers, but before you can read the numbers, we need to like back up a little bit, right? Do you think that that's something kind of created in the like education of engineering because of the things that engineering does? I mean, they build buildings, they build bridges, they build all these amazing things. Do you think that that just kind of comes along with it, or is it just the personality type that you need to be successful at engineering? Like, what do you think creates that like uh, big ego versus the strong ego?
yeah. So this is something that, we talked in great lengths because I believe the school system, and not that I'm down on the school system. I did, graduate from University of Windsor. But one of the things I know, especially over the last few years, that the school system teaches you how to learn, but they don't teach you how to succeed. So if you're learning the wrong thing, it's very hard to position yourself for success when you go out in the corporate world.
Right.
So that is one of the biggest things that I noticed. right? Because a lot of people that I've seen, they are really good at working hard, but they didn't do the harder work, which is it's just their mind, developing themselves, right? Personal growth and development, which I know we talk length this,
Yeah.
right? I know I get it. There's a lot of people that have certifications, at least in the engineering world, MBA, they might have their PhD and a lot of that, which is great. But at the end of the day, is that really what is going to be the best way to position you for success?
Right.
And then when it comes to doing the harder work, that's where I really, and a lot, it might, people say, well, I don't have the personality to become a leader, or I don't have the personality to become a project manager, that is. And then one of my good friends, I was living in Kitchener-Waterloo, he said, Mandy, it's not a personality thing, it's a mentality. Has anybody even gave you maybe this book? Or have you ever met this person? Or you ever, read this, heard this podcast or audios that kind of change your perspective on how you see yourself? Right? Because when you change the way you see things, some of the things that you see will start to change.
Yeah.
And then that was an epitome for me when somebody told me that.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen the Tony Robbins when he's like, the newest one is him and Theo Vaughn, the comedian. And he's like, okay, Theo, look around the room, look for anything that's red. And he picks out things that are red. And then Tony says, okay, tell me what you saw that was blue. And he's like, nothing. I only looked at the red things, right? And that perspective of being able to say, okay, like, how do I learn? How do I get better? Just because I maybe am an introvert doesn't mean I can't learn to become an extrovert in certain situations, right? So I would 100% agree that mentality and the mindset shift is really big, and it's not just big for like you to develop as a person. If you want to, like you said, succeed in your career, if you want to succeed in your personal relationships, if you want to succeed with money, you have to be able to look at things differently than the way that we were grown up, the way that we were looking at things growing up, right? Because if your parents were never good with money and you learned those habits from them, how do you expect to be better with money if you don't look at it from a different perspective?
100%.
Right. And so what was this like then? So going to Kitchener, you're in this whole new environment. You're living away from friends and family for the most part. Now you're living at home most of the time versus traveling a lot. Where did this like learning, was it the mentor that hired you at that company that said, hey, go read these books, hey, go do these things? Or was it something that you said, I need to go search these things out myself? How did you start to learn some of the concepts?
Yeah. So I think it's mainly a twist of fate that this happened, because I didn't really learn it within the engineering realm, so to speak. Now I knew how to work hard, like I mentioned earlier. Right? I always said that the best way to be able to lead is by example. Right. So I was always one of those hard work. I was never what I call people are like a 9 to 5. I was a start to finish. So that's what really helped grow my career. I developed that when I was really, really, really young. So when it came to, starting to develop doing the harder work, which is your mind, it actually came from my neighbors. When I first moved into that neighborhood, my friends there, they're entrepreneurs, right? They had businesses outside of the careers. They were able to scale it at a high level, right? And we were to be able to walk away from the corporate careers at the age of 26 and 28. Wow. So when I got a chance to learn from their stories, and it's like, how did they be able to position themselves like that, right? And they were talking about, building other assets, other income streams, learning about leadership skills, effective communication, time management, financial literacy, business intelligence, all of these things that you're not really taught in school. At least I wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, I was never taught them either.
Yes.
They teach you, even like I took a degree in like business marketing.
Yes.
Most of the time they talk about marketing businesses. They talk about financial for businesses, how to read corporate ledgers.
Yes.
No one ever teaches you how to do personal finance or how to market yourself personally, or like none of them talk about any of that stuff, right? It's that corporate world mentality, right? None of us are taught that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I've noticed in the school system. Like, you do a lot of calculus, algebra, very technical stuff. But if there was, let's say, a public speaking course or effective communications course, right? These are skills that you're going to take for the rest of your life, right? Yeah. And that's for the best way to position yourself for success, right? Learning how to network. I know we met at a networking event, right? Just because it's all about who you know, not what you know.
Yeah.
Right. And that always bothered me when I was really young in my career, because I was an extreme introvert. I didn't like talking to people. Literally, if you would have met me maybe 10 years ago, you would be seeing me in the cubicle for 8 to 10 hours a day, and I probably would talk to nobody. And I was fine with that. And I
Wow.
did that for basically years.
Yeah.
Right. But then I realized that if you really want to get to that next level, you have to do things that are uncomfortable. Right. So that's when when I met that couple who were my neighbors, they taught me a lot about leadership, effective communication, all of these things that I never learned when I was, growing up. Right. Because your parents they only know what they know.
Correct.
So if you don't, what you don't transform, you're going to transfer it to the next generation. So I knew I had to be able to change that mindset if I'm going to affect more people while I'm here.
That's an interesting way to say it. If you don't transform it, you're going to transfer it.
Yes.
That's an interesting way to say it. And that could be anything.
It could be anything.
Right?
Yes.
It could be your financial situation, it could be your relationship situation, it could be whatever. If you don't transform something, you're going to transfer it. I like that.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so then you start learning all these things from friends, neighbors of yours up in Kitchener-Waterloo. Did you instantaneously start to see like how they could be transferred into the corporate world, into your engineering career? Obviously it's not something that just happened instantaneously. You had to work at it.
Yes.
Right. But did you start to see like little things just kind of like, oh, that, I'm so glad that I learned this or did that or took this course or whatever, because it put me in a position for that thing.
Yeah. So it didn't happen, overnight. So when I started to really seek, advice, I went to like networking events, some of the things that they ran, and they talked about the things that I mentioned earlier. And this is where my mindset started to shift. But it's not that I was trying to learn more things at the time. I had to unlearn a lot of things, right? Because being in corporate at the time, I think it was about 13 years into my journey. So it was very foreign to some of the concepts because I never, let's say, read a book that's going to help me, whether it's personally, financially, leadership. Like none of those things were ever put in place for me to be able to succeed at that next level. Yeah. All right. And then in the networking, all of those things took a lot of time. And then when I started to get into certain seminars, leadership seminars, it probably took maybe about 6 to maybe 9 months when I started to now not just learn it, but start to apply it.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of things do you think you started to like try to unlearn? What were some of the things that you were like, this area of my life is not serving me and I need to change it?
Yeah. The biggest one, because of my personality as an engineer, is my introverted, passive kind of mentality. All right. I see, let's say my boss at the time, he was very extroverted. He was very clever. He liked to talk. He liked to talk a lot. Very smart, very intelligent. And I just thinking, and then I see a lot of people in the corporate world that, especially people that are higher, I notice how well they communicate, how they interact with some of their clients, how they interact with their team. And it's like, that's just not me because my personality is not like them. But I think I was trying to be like somebody else. Mm. And then what I learned from some of my good friends, they're big mentors and business partners of mine, is like, you're not trying to be somebody else. You're trying to evolve into a better version of you.
Right.
And then that's when I started to apply some of the things. Like I went from, reading no book. Now I read about 40 books a year plus. Yeah. Anything related to personal growth and development, attending a lot of networking sessions, just meeting new people. Right. Because it's all about, like I mentioned, who you know, not versus what you know. Yeah. And expand my network.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of people say that, because you hear like two different trains of thought. You hear it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right. And that can go in positive and negative. Yeah. Right. So when you say it's not what you know, it's who you know, what would you say would be the one thing that anybody who thinks of that as a negative, right? Like, I didn't get the job because I didn't know the right person and they're doing someone a favor, like that type of mentality. If you had somebody, let's say, that was working for you or that you met at a networking session that was making those types of comments, the negative attribute comments on that topic, what would you tell that person?
The first thing I would actually tell them is you have to change the way you think. One of the things I notice with people is that they're very hard on themselves, right? So this comes with, speaking down on yourself, right? Because what you say or what you speak is going to turn into reality, right? And I was very hard on myself early on. Like, I'll never be like this. I'll never be like that. So it's called saying positive affirmation. So if you want to change the way your outlook on life, you literally have to change your words and what you say about yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's like a foreign concept, especially if you're an engineer. It's like, what? Is it as simple as that? Right.
Yeah.
And it's,
There's no tangible numbers. There's no
yeah.
tangible formula that says, well, if I do this enough, I'm going to get X.
Yeah.
It's tough
Yeah.
when your whole career, your whole degree is like verifiable proof and data.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like changing the way you think and the way you act, there's no verifiable proof or data.
No, they want like hard evidence.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Okay. So so you're starting to like learn and change some of the things that you're doing. Where did the opportunity then come from, going from Kitchener and moving back to Windsor? Where did that come from?
So when I got a chance to connect with my neighbor, this was around 2017. So this is where I had to make a big shift into where I wanted my career to go. This is also where I learned a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit because it came from them. So when I started to start to grow a side of me that I never seen, right, and then I see my leadership, my effective communication started to grow. One of my old friends I used to work with back in Windsor, so he saw me started to change and to grow and stuff like that. So he was kind of poaching me over the next, or next 12 months. And I said, I always kind of push him on because I love the community that I was.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity started to came up, right? And sometimes when your opportunity comes up, it's too late to prepare. So that's when I got a chance to say, he met with me. We got a chance to connect. And then I thought that would be a great time to move. This is right before COVID too. So I guess timing really helped on that one.
Sure.
And then I got a chance to do that. I think the hardest part was actually telling the company I was with that I was leaving because I totally blindsided them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is where I was very blessed or, hold such high gratitude for what I've learned because when I told them that I was leaving, one of the vice presidents of that company, because they're all shocked that I was leaving.
Yeah.
And I told him why I was leaving, and coming back here to Windsor. And he understood it. He understood why. And he said, you know what, Manny, because they like what I've done for the company. It's like, if you ever want to come back to Kitchener-Waterloo to work for us, just give me a call. You can start the next day.
Wow.
Right. And that was really, really powerful because all along I never really knew how much value it was. But over those last 2 years, just growing and developing, becoming a business developer, right? It really kind of humbled me, right, up to where I was going, right? And then that's when, I became a principal engineer, going to Tandem Engineering where I am now.
Yeah. And did you ever see yourself becoming a principal of an engineering firm? Like if you went back 10 years ago, I guess you've been here for like almost 10 years. Let's say like 15, 20 years ago, would you have thought like old Manny like would never have had the goals that he had of becoming a principal, or would he just be like, I'm good living in the corporate world doing my start to finish?
Yeah, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. I was just one of those guys just in front of my computer and doing the hard work and just doing that on a day to day. I just knew how to work hard. But as you start to grow in your career, especially if you're working 80, 90 hours a week, I was at a point where I was like that. It was a lot of hours. And when you start to get a little bit growing into your career, you realize what's the most important thing. It's not money, it's time.
Yeah.
All right. And then I knew I had to develop other skills to be able to evolve to that new, better version of me. And then when I started to learn about these other people that are principal engineers, people that own their own businesses, I see the way and learning from their stories. And I can pick and choose, how can I apply that to my life? What are they doing that's differently? A lot of it happens to habits and the discipline into that. And then that's when I started to say, you know what? I think I can lead one day. I think I can do some business development or be that, part of that, being an entrepreneur of the company. Basically, that's where I am at Tandem Engineering, is that business developer.
So if you went back, like, let's say 15, 20 years ago, and you're looking at the old version of Manny, Do you think that the old version of Manny would be like, that guy is so lucky that he gets to go on lots of vacations. Oh, that guy's so lucky that he's got control of time because I don't. And would he be like, kind of, I'll call it complaining, I guess. I don't really know a better word for it. Complaining that he doesn't have the things that he wants. And then just through understanding communication, understanding goals, understanding, um, taking an extreme ownership in the choices that you make, that taking the development and the mindset shift that he turned into the Manny now, where it's just like, if I want the thing, how do I figure it out? Like, do you think that the old Manny would have been that sort of complaining type person of the things that he didn't have?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because I remember being, 15 years younger and just looking at other people, even in my sphere of influence. I see people moving on, and it's like, and I always kind of blame maybe my personality, right? Because, being I was the youngest of five kids, and going through school, going through, my first career job, and even my boss told me this too, is that, Manny, you're too quiet, right? I don't know if I can put you in front of the client because you don't say anything, right? So what's doing that for somebody that's young in their career, or even somebody that's young, right? When you start to put that behavior into a personality, now it becomes an identity for that
Right.
person. So growing up, that's what I say. It's like, I can't be that next person because I am this, or I cannot, be like that because I am this, because it was an identity that was put down from my sphere of influence, young and growing up into my careers, and then I just kind of accepted that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I needed somebody outside of my sphere of influence to be able to break that, I guess, curse and that thinking.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's when really I started to think differently, to be able to say, yeah, you know what, I can do this.
Yeah.
Right? And started speaking good about myself. I call it positive affirmation.
Positive affirmations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm assuming that now that you're a principal and you have some people working for you, that you're now helping others try to break
Yep.
some of those habits.
Yes.
What would you say to, like, even to a guy like myself, right? Jason and I now have, I don't know, 10, 12 sales guys between both avenues of our business. And they probably see themselves as one thing. How would you go about helping someone see a different side of themselves?
Yeah.
Or see a better version of themselves, or what could be? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Because I would say 6 or 7 years ago, I started to evaluate what kind of separates one engineer from another. They can have equal technical skills, right? But then their outcomes are very different. So when I moved to this company here in Windsor, I actually created an internal training system called Mind Over Engineering, right? So it really had nothing to do with technical skills. It's about, how did I think during certain situation, right? Because you can have two engineers look at the same problem. One guy looks at it as an obstacle, and another guy looks at it as an opportunity. So during my mind over engineering, I do it about once a month, and I start to train my staff to think differently about how they see problems. Right? I always say, don't play to the minimum. That's also kind of how I grew to my career. I never played. You have a job description. I never played at a minimum. I always look at, okay, what can I do to become that lead engineer? Or what can I do to help my project manager and project coordinator? So when I started to do those tasks, the results started to follow me, right? And then I was starting to do work that my principal engineer did, doing proposals, meeting the clients, right? I only can get that to the level when I really started to develop my communication and speaking skills. So then that's when I started to advance in my career even faster. So in my mind over engineering training, I talk a lot about, let's say we call it the soft skills in the industry, which is not something a lot of engineers like to work on, right? Because maybe they need to see a little bit more tangible evidence, right? And I love teaching that every month. It's probably one of the most important meetings. I tell it to my staff all the time, is because this is all of the tests that I had through my entire career. Now I can share that as testimony so that you don't have to go through the same mistakes as I did.
Right. Yeah. And so how do you then go about sharing that mind over engineering? Is it like you do a little episode podcast like this, recording yourself? Is it like you guys in training, learning about something? Are you bringing up a past thing that happened and how you solved it and how you problem solved? Like, how are you bringing this awareness to the engineers that are training with you?
Yeah. So when I'm going through, and I do, like I mentioned, I do it once a month. So I pick certain, let's say, tasks that I've done in the past. And so over some of the things that I learned, it's kind of the way I think. And then I'll pick, let's say, for instance, networking. I'll give this as a good example because I like sharing this example to my staff. And it's like, this is why it's so important to develop your effective communication skills. And I gave them one story. And that story was, I went to the Windsor Wednesday event. I connected with a gentleman there who connected me to another networking event that he ran. I made some good connections at the table that I was. A month later, somebody gave me a call, right? And then she said, hey, you don't know who I am, but you met my neighbor there. And then we connected. I ended up interviewing that person, and then that person still works with me today. It's been 4 years.
Wow.
Right. So that's kind of like an example of how I show that networking is very important to be able to open up more sphere of influence about who you know. And I also found clients, business partners that way.
Yeah.
The one I'm going to be doing this Thursday, literally the topic, Mind Over Engineering, is going to be called Buy Back Your Time.
Yeah.
About developing good time management skills because we all want time.
Yeah. So that was something when you and I got together last time that was very, I'll call it eye-opening, I guess. Because Jason and I have talked about this. Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, great book. And he talks about doing like a 15-minute check every 15 minutes on what did you spend your time on.
Yep.
And he says do it for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You did it for like 6.
I did it for 6 weeks.
And I'm just like, after I left there, I was like, man, like I don't even have the time to do the thing for 2 weeks, let alone 6. How did you, how did you do it? Like, I'm so maybe this is just an excuse. I'm so run off my feet. I have so much planned. I'm doing all these things. Maybe I'm just not making that thing a priority. But at the same time, like there's other things that are also as important or more important than doing an Excel document every 15 minutes of what I spent my time on. Yeah. Right. Like, how did you go about doing that for 6 weeks, doing everything that you were doing?
Yeah. Well, first off, I was about to do a networking talk about time management. And so I said, this is a great way to be able to share personally about systems that I have in place and to be able to take a log on what I do in a day. Right. Because a lot of people, we have heard of people budgeting their finances. Yeah. Right. And some people do, some people don't. Yeah. Then I asked the question is, well, when was the last time you audit your time? Right? Because if you think of what's more important, time or money, it's time. So time is what we want the most, but we treat it the worst. So when I really started to understand that concept, it's like, I have to make this a priority because I need to know where my time is going. Yeah. So once I was able to, and I did it for, I would only wanted to do it for maybe 1, maybe 2 weeks, but I wanted to extend it for 6 weeks so that I can really get some good data. Again, it's part of my engineering mind. So I can be able to analyze, okay, where am I spending a lot of my time? Because at that time I was training for a marathon, right? We were working a lot of hours at, tandem engineering and then, running a couple other businesses, plus, family events and so on. So I really need to put a log about where my time is going because there's a difference between being productive versus being busy. A lot of people think being busy is being productive. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot, even myself, when I did that audit, I was like, wow, I still do about 17 to 18 hours a week that are not important and non-productive, which is an eye-opener for me because what can you do with that, extra 18 hours to be more productive or to be able to, spend time with, family and so on, or maybe even just exercise. So when I did it on myself, it was more of a light bulb moment for me, but I also wanted to share it to the people that I got a chance to talk to about when was the last time you audit your time? Because a lot of people are really difficult when it comes to time management, and they always say that they're busy, right?
When I hear you talk about that, Jason and I shared something this morning to our staff. This morning, similar, right? Where you're growing in your career and you're making maybe more money than your friends are making, or you're having more success than other things. And those other things can sometimes start to go by the wayside
Yeah.
because our sphere of influence is now a different sphere of influence, right? There was overlap in the beginning, and now I've moved into a different, but now I'm also connected to other people, and you're going to start to kind of progress yourself into a different circle of friends. When I hear you talk about that, I'm like, okay, there's probably a lot of time that I'm doing things that are not productive. But at the same time, like, you also don't just want to be a robot, always working, never
Correct.
having fun, not doing things. And so what would you say to the person that maybe works for you that is like, okay, I have a lot of stuff that I'm doing. Is it just that I need to be okay and comfort with where I'm at in life because I don't want to change those things? Or would you try to encourage that person to change those things because life is better on the other side? Because there's obviously things that we only have so much time in a day.
100%.
We have to give up something to grow and get something else, right? So it's not, when I was reading a book the other day, it's not so much a sacrifice, as people would say. It's an investment in something else, right? So yes, I might be quote unquote sacrificing this thing, going out to the bar with friends, whatever, but I'm choosing to go invest my time somewhere else. What would you tell that person who's like, I don't know if I want to give those things up?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good question because it's going to lead to my talk that I'm going to be doing on Thursday. Right. So there's a difference. We all know the concept of, spending money versus investing money. Right. You spend money on food or whatever, you're not really getting a rate of return back.
Yeah.
But when you're investing into something, you expect some kind of return. It's the same thing with time. Right? If you spend time on something or somebody, is it a good investment back? And don't get me wrong, I'll spend time with some of my friends. I call it like having progressive or conservative relationships, right? There's people in life where it's like an elevator. They're either gonna bring you up, they're gonna bring you down, or they're neutral, right? They're not up or down. The ones that are gonna bring you down are very easy to spot, right? Because they're always negative. Maybe if you're going somewhere in life, they would try to pull you down, right? Those are very easy to spot, but it could be your best friend, right? The second type of people are the hardest to spot. These are the more neutral people. These are the friends that you kind of hang out with, all the time, but they're not really want to grow. They're not very ambitious about going to that next level, but they're not necessarily negative either, right? But then just like in an elevator, there's a capacity, right? So if you have so many people in the elevator there, it's eventually going to bring you down because it's going to stop you from reaching your potential. And then there is the third type of people, which is the rare type of people. These are the people that are going somewhere in life. They're thinking about the future, right? If you look at the people and this is the best way to spot neutral people or negative people, the next time you have a conversation, what are you guys talking about? Are you talking about the past?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about events, things that are happening now? Usually it's about things that we've done many years ago. But the rare conversation, this is when you know you're on the right elevator. When you're talking with somebody and they're talking about things about the future, what they're going to do, some of their goals, some of the things that they want to accomplish. Those are the people that you really want to surround yourself with. The challenge is the people that are negative is like the 3-minute people, right? But then we like to spend like 3 days with the 3-minute people or 3 hours with the 3-minute people. But what you really need to do is say, how do I spend more time with the people that are going somewhere? And that's where you can start to invest your time properly, like the network event, that we go to.
Yeah.
I looked at it as an investment because you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah.
Like we connected there.
Yeah.
And I found one of my engineers there. I found, clients there, right? So I was able to add a lot of value and vice versa. So that's where I like to spend or invest my time in because, I'm expecting something in return, right? Because I always say, if I'm going to go talk to this person, I'm going to add value. And if something comes back, that's great. Or at least I'll be able to share part of my story that can probably help them down the road, right? Which I've done in the past as well, right? So that's the way I look at it when it comes to time. It's investing it in the right places so it will add value and help them, right? And if it returns, that's great. But I never think about the return. I just know if I'm always doing good, helping other people succeed, I'll eventually succeed along the way.
Right. And then, so how are you obviously have to have a goal in mind of where you're trying to get to, what you're trying to do, if you're going to be deciding what to invest your time in,
Mhm.
not versus not in, right? You know, and you know, I love the fact that you're here having this podcast, because obviously you're giving me an hour of your time and plus, you know, some drive time, versus somewhere else. So how do you decide those goals and what thing makes the most sense to invest in?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, it's all about where you want to go, right? Because if you don't have a goal, I look at it this way: if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every single time,
Yeah.
right? And every person that I ask, whether it's engineers or people that out and about, I ask, so you know, where do you want to see yourself in 2 years, 5 years? You know, how do you want to see it? And most people draw a blank, which kind of blows my mind. But then again, I can understand that mentality because that's how I was 10 years ago.
Right.
Right. So once I had an idea where I wanted to be, like, you know, maybe a managing partner here or building other businesses, right? So I had a goal and a target in mind. So now I start to develop the habits to start to get there, right? And habits is one thing, but you also got to be disciplined.
Yeah.
That's the challenge for most people because we have a lot of, let's say, habits that we're not proud of,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the book that I read in Atomic Habits is not about bringing a new one; it's replacing the old one with better ones.
Right.
So slowly over time, that's what I've done, so that I can be okay. This is aligned with my goals. This is aligned with my values. So now it's just a decision saying, okay, I am not going to do this. I'm going to pursue this, right? And then when you make those small decisions consistently over time, it's going to start to compound.
Yeah.
And then that's when you really start to see some of the results.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's true for anything, right? It's true for your fitness. It's true for business. It's true for your finances. I mean, I always tell people, when people are like starting fresh or they're young people, if they have debt and they're trying to like, well, do I pay off debt or do I save money?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, sometimes I'm like, that probably should do both, right?
Yeah.
You don't go to the gym and pick up a 50-pound dumbbell in one hand and a 25-pound dumbbell in the other hand, right? You take two 25s and you start curling both at the same time because you're not going to make one stronger than the other, right? You have to say, okay, I'm going to pay off debt and save money at the same time, and then I'll get ahead. It might be a little slower, but at least if anything comes up emergency-wise, I've got some money set aside, right? And that's just learning habits, right? You also can't go from saving zero money to saving $1,000 a month because you get this great job, because you're not used to saving $1,000 a month, right? That's a big thing to save,
100%.
right? So you have to take those in little strides, and like you said, replace the little habits as you're going, right? Man, Manny, we could talk forever. We're running out of time because I think there's somebody else coming in behind us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to end the podcast. One question in a second, but is there anything that you want to tell anybody about, you know, Tandem, what you guys do, you know, your favorite book? Like, is there anything that you would tell anybody listening here that if there was one thing that they could do to like change their life or get in a better place or do whatever, that they should do this thing?
Yeah. So I think it's easier to put a picture of success versus what it takes to actually be successful. So it's those little habits. And something I tell my staff all the time is like, okay, what are your habits? Are you reading? Are you putting good nutrients into your mind? Right? Because I think most people are mentally obese. So when I started having a fit mind, it started to really strengthen other areas in my life. And when I started to implement that into Tandem Engineering, when I started, you know, many years ago, we're a growing company. Right? We have an office in Detroit and Windsor. We're really ready, primed to expand to that next level, right? But then it also demand a newer version of yourself. So my biggest goal is to be able to transfer a lot of I just want to be a conduit of wisdom to the other people so that they can start to grow and learn together. Because if we're all alignment, then that's what teamwork is, right? Together, everybody achieves more, right? And that's the standard barrier that I want to have for my team and my staff to go to that next level.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having a fit mind is huge. I mean, you know, everything is, you know, mental.
Yes.
And if you can withstand those mental fights, you'll be okay. Well, thanks for the time today, Manny. Final question I have is, we always end the podcast asking our guest, what does success mean to you?
Success means that I leave a legacy, right? Because there's two deaths in life. One, when your true death, The other one is when people start to forget your name, right? So when you start to impact people in a positive way while you're here, people are going to remember that, right? So when the legacy continues to grow, when you start to transfer this mindset, right? And then that's what I think true success is. Because it's just like, a flame. A candle will never lose its flame if you light another candle, right? So if you're able to be able to share your story, kind of like this, and to be able to share the test that you pass, now it becomes a testimony to others.
Yeah.
One of my mind of engineering that I said was, if I'm going to write a book, if you write a book about yourself from the time you're born to where it is now, and you give it to somebody that is in need of encouragement and they read your book, would it change their life? If it wouldn't, then you need to start changing your life so you become better. So I know this is just a chapter of where I am, but my book is continue. You're the author of your own life.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what success to me is, that when I write a book at the end of my lifetime, I can give it to somebody, and even if it's impacting one person, and that one person could be able to affect generations or thousands, or maybe break a generational curse.
Yeah.
That's what success is to me.
I like that. I like that analogy you used. If a flame on a candle will never go out if it lights another candle.
Correct.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I like that. I think, and I think it goes to the testament of, like, who you are since I've met you.
Yes.
We've had some amazing conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always just sharing wisdom on how to do anything better, whether it's business, whether it's real estate, whether it's networking. Like, we've just had some really good conversations over the past, and I know they're going to continue.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But yeah, we're out of time. So, Manny, thank you very much for taking the time to chat about leadership and some of the things you guys are doing at Tandem to make Tandem, a great organization of engineers that are doing something different. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to just thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able and use this platform to help other people. So I'm really excited to be able to share a little bit about my story.
I appreciate it. And I guess I'll probably see you at the next Wisdom Wednesday. Who knows?
100%.
So,
see me there.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's another episode of Cracking the Success Vault here with Spectre Group and our guest today, Manuel Lolarga from Tandem Engineering. As always, you can find us on all the streaming platforms, the podcasts, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, YouTube. You know where to find us. Until next time.